Alright guys, so for this video, we'll be working on the May June 2018 paper, paper 3 variant 1, okay? For this video, we'll just be working on the web authoring portion, which is your HTML and CSS portion of the paper, okay? So, first of all, let's have a look at task number 1, evidence document, okay? So open the file J1831 evidence.rtf. Make sure your name, center number, and candidate number will appear on every page of your evidence document by placing these details in the header. Save this as a word processed document in your work area with the file name J1831 evidence followed by your candidate number, for example, J1831 evidence 9999. You will need to place screenshots and answers to questions in this evidence document. Okay. So very simple, we're going to open our working folder, and then we're going to open the J1831 evidence rich text format file. Okay, now because it says that your name, center number, and candidate number must appear on every single page of the document, I'm just going to go to the header by double clicking on it, and then I'll just type in my name, center number, and candidate number. But then I will then need to save it as a Word document according to what the question requires, followed by my candidate number. Okay, all right, done. So let's look at the next question. You work for Hothouse Design and will develop web pages for a small construction company called Bobby's Bricks. Efficient markup and style sheets must be used. All color codes must be in hexadecimal. Create a new folder called bb_html. Locate the following files and store them in your bb_html folder. All right, so simple. I'm going to just create a new folder called bb_html, and then I'm just going to locate all the files here and just move them into the folder. All right, so bb contact, map, text1, text2, logo, BB style, blocks, brickwork, and paving. So drag and drop, boom. So we're going to go inside here. Okay, so let's move on to the next page. Okay, so create a web page called bb.htm. This web page must work in all browsers and will have a table structure as shown below. Each table cell is identified with a letter and all dimensions are in pixels. The letters and dimensions shown in the table must not appear in your final web page, which means that your A as well as your 400 times 300 pixels should not appear. These are just indications. Okay, the external table border must have a width of 4 pixels and all internal grid lines must have a width of 2 pixels. Table borders and grid lines must be visible. Okay, so let's create a new web page called bb.htm, and the application that we'll be using is called Microsoft Expression Web. So I'm going to open that, and when Microsoft Expression Web opens, you will notice that you either will be seeing the HTML code or you will be seeing an empty page here. Now it's still the same application except that you are on different tabs. Okay, design basically shows how your web page would look like. The code basically contains the code that well, for lack of a better word, generates the web page that you see in design. Okay, so for Cambridge papers, IGCSE ICT, we'll be working mostly in the design portion. So remembering HTML code is not really that much of a worry. Okay, so I'm just going to switch to design so that I can work on it here. Now, remember the question says that I need to save it as bb.htm. So I'm going to save that first, save as. And then I'm going to select my working folder, and I'm going to call it bb.htm. And I'm going to press save. Now let's have a look at the table. Right, the table has 4 rows, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and a maximum of 3 columns. Right, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm going to go to table. I'm going to select insert table, and then I'm going to say 4 rows and 3 columns. Now the width of the table, I'm going to keep it at 100%. And I'm going to adjust it later after I've put in all the cells and all that. Okay, so you understand why later anyway. So I'm going to click OK. And then if you look at the first 3 cells here, right, A, B, and C, the width is 400 and the height is 300. So what I can do is I can highlight all 3, right click, go to cell properties, and then I'm going to specify the height and the width to 400 and 300. Okay, it's going to look like that. And then if you look at cell D, it is actually merged across 3 columns, right? So I'm just going to highlight all the 3 cells here, right click, modify, merge. And then the width is 1200 and the height is 250. So cell properties again, width is 1002, right? Height is 250. All right, there you go. And then E also merge across, merge cells, and then 1200 and 150. Okay, so cell properties, 1200 and 150. And then finally, for these 2 cells, right, I'm just going to merge the first 2 cells into one and leave the cell G as it is. So first 2 cells, right click, modify, merge, highlight both cells, cell properties, and then I'm going to change the width to 600 and the height to 300. Okay, you'll notice that it's unbalanced, right? So that's the reason why I was talking about the table width previously. Okay, we're going to adjust it later. Right, so in order for us to adjust the table width, we need to make sure that we actually select the entire table. Now you notice that when you click on any element in a web page, right, you'll notice that the name of the HTML element is actually displayed, right? So if you click on a table cell, for example, you will see TD displayed here, and you will also see TD selected here. Now, if you move to TR, which is one level higher than TD, TR basically means a table row, right? You actually select the entire row, and the next level above TR is basically table. So that's what we want. I want to select the entire table, right? And then I'm going to right click on the table and I'm going to select table properties. Now, because I've specified the height and width of each individual cell, I can now safely remove the width of the table, because the question did not say that the table has to fill the entire web page, and that is what 100% means. Okay, 100% means the table will fill across the entire width of the web page. So if you have a screen that is, I don't know, like 1006 by 900, for example, then your entire table will fill across the screen. We don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to uncheck this and I'm going to click OK. Right, you don't see the change now, but you will see the changes later when we preview the web page. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Right, it says the external border must have a width of 4 pixels. But this question is a little bit misleading because you have to do it in the CSS portion. Right, if you scroll down and you look at the last question here, it will ask you to actually refer to question 1. So I'm going to leave this question out first. Okay, we're going to move on to question number 2. So place in cell A the image brickwork.jpg. Right, so cell A is here. So I'm going to insert picture from file, and then I'm going to go to the working folder, brickwork. Right, alternate text is what will be displayed if the image is not available. Now, because it has something to do with brickwork, I'll just type in brickwork, regardless of whether the question requires me to do so. All right, and then let's look at the next question. Place in cell B the text, click on an image for further details, and set the text as style H2. So click on an image for further details. I'm going to set this to H2. Okay, so now this becomes a H2 element. And how would I know? Because when I click on it, I see H2. All right, moving on. Place in cell C the image paving.jpg, resize the image in the markup so that it is 394 pixels wide and maintains its aspect ratio. Okay, so insert picture from file again, and then I'm going to select paving. Right, so alternate text, I'm going to put in paving as well, and then you notice that it's too big. Right, that's the reason why the question requires you to modify the width to 394 pixels. So how do I do that? I double click on the image, I go to appearance, and the width 394, and I need to keep the aspect ratio maintained. So I'm going to click OK, and you'll notice that it resizes itself. Okay, I'm going to save that. Moving on to the next question. So place in cell D the image bblogo.jpg, This is the logo of the company which appears on the company vehicles, letterheads, etc. Make this image a hyperlink to open the web page bbcontact.htm in a new browser window called _new. So here, bb logo, right? So bb logo. So the alternate text will be logo. That is a very ugly picture that should appear on everything. Anyway, so when you click on the image, right, it's supposed to open a web page called bbcontact.htm in a new browser window called _new. Right, so I'm going to right click on the image, I'm going to go to hyperlink, and because it's linking to a web page, I'm going to select existing file or web page, and I'm going to select bb contact. But the question also requires it to be open in a new browser window called _new. So I'm going to go to target frame, new window, and I'm going to change this to _new. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to save that. Let's look at the next question. 6. Place in cell E the text from the file bbtext1.txt. Okay, so cell E is here, and I need to open bbtext1. So what I'll do is I'll just copy the text here. I'm going to paste it in here. And then I'm going to set this text as style h1. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to change this to h1. Okay. All right, moving on to the next question. Place in cell F the text from the file bbtext2. So I'm going to open this, bbtext2, going to open this, and I'm going to paste it here. So add your name, center number, and candidate number to the end of this text. All right, edited by me. Why did you go to the... Okay. Set the text, we will undertake building projects in other regions of the world as style H2. Set the text web page design and creation by Hothouse Design. Web page last edited by as style H3. Okay, so this should be H2. Change that to H2. Oops. And then this will be H3. So I'm going to remove any spaces in between. Okay, there you go. So what I did, I just pressed the delete button. So make only the text Hothouse Design a hyperlink to the web page, http://www.hothouse-design.co.uk, which should be set to open in the same browser window. Okay, so Hothouse Design, where is it? Hothouse Design. Hyperlink. So I'm just going to type in the address here. So http://hothouse-design.co.uk, but it should open in the same browser window. So I'm going to select target frame, and I'm going to select same frame. But I'm going to select OK. So there's a link there that users can then click on. OK. Make sure appropriate text is displayed if an image is not available. Okay, we've done that already for each and every single image. Okay, so we don't need to do that anymore. Basically, what this question wants is the alternate text for each image. So how you check, how do you verify that? It's just double click on the image, and then if you see what you've typed in the alternate text field, it means that you have answered the question correctly. Okay, next question. Center align the table in the browser. So I'm going to select the table again, and I'm going to select center align. Okay, you don't see it, but when you preview it later, you will see what it means. Okay, and then 11, attach the style sheet bbstyle.css to your web page and to bbcontact. Save the web pages in your bb_html folder. So I need to attach the style sheet, right? So attach style sheet, browse, bb style, click OK. So you'll notice that the background color changes, and some of the fonts change as well. So this means that the style in the CSS file has been applied successfully to your HTML page. But I think there's another file that we need to apply it to, which is bb contact. So I'm going to edit that with expression web as well, and then I'm going to attach the same style sheet as the previous one. Okay, so you notice that the font actually changed, right? I'm going to switch back, and then we'll move on to the CSS portion. Alright, moving on, right? The style sheet has been started but needs to be improved using the most efficient syntax. Make sure your style sheet does not contain any HTML. Okay, open the style sheet bbstyle.css in a suitable software package and examine its contents. Edit this style sheet so that it has the following specification. Okay, so let's open bbstyle and have a look at it. Same thing, gonna edit with expression web. Now, if you look here, there are actually two selectors that have been created already. Okay, one is called body, another one is called h1. So basically how CSS works is that once you have attached a CSS file to a HTML page, it will basically target the different elements in a HTML page. Like for this, it actually targets the body element of your bb.htm, right? Body means the entire web page. And what it does is it changes the background color to a specific color here. And it also targets the h1 element and changes the font of h1 to Arial, right? If you look here, h1 has actually changed to Arial. For example, if I remove this and I save it, you will notice that it actually changes to, if I'm not mistaken, this is a serif font, right? You notice it has sharp edges. So if I put that back and I switch it back, notice it changes to Arial again. So that's basically how CSS works. Okay, so let's look at the next question, right? Styles h1, h2, and h3 display the font Zeph Chancery. If this is not available, then Blackadder ITC. If neither of these fonts are available, then display the default serif font. Okay, so I'm gonna add in a new selector. So how I do that is I go to New Style, and then I'll type it in here. So what element do I need to target, right? So I need to make sure that I remove everything here, including the little dot at the front. Okay, that is actually a signification pull up. That actually signifies a class. But we're not working in any on any classes in this paper. So I'm going to take that away. And because it says it needs h1, h2, and h3, I'm going to put h1, h2, h3. This means whatever style that I'm applying right now applies to h1, h2, and h3 elements that is referring to this particular CSS file. Okay, so font family, it says that it needs Zeph Chancery, whatever that is. And if it is not available, Blackadder ITC. And if it's not available, the default serif font. Okay. Now, if you look at the next question, it also says styles h1, h2, and h3 must be center aligned. So I go to block, text align, I select center, and I'm going to click OK. So you'll notice that once you have put in the new selectors, you'll notice that the font style actually changes, right? So it changes from, if I'm not mistaken, a serif font, if I'm not mistaken, right, to this type of font, and it's now center aligned, H2, H1, and H3 as well. Okay, so that is an indication that we've answered the question correctly. So let's move on to the next one. Now, style H1 must be red with no green or blue element. Now, because it's only for style H1, I cannot combine H1, H2, and H3 together. So this means I need a new selector for this, right? So new style, H1. It needs to be red with no green or blue elements. Now, when it comes to hexadecimal color codes, right, we always start with a hashtag and then double digits of red, green, and then blue. Okay, now because it's hexadecimal, right, the smallest denominator or number is 0, 00, and the largest is basically FF. So FF is a representation of the number 255. All right, so anyway, because the question says that it must be red with no green or blue elements, so it should be hashtag FF, no green, no blue. So this actually gives you the color red. So I'm going to type it here, hashtag FF0000. So notice that it actually changes to red. So I'm going to click OK, and you will notice that your H1 element font color now changes to red. Ew. Okay, moving on. So style H2 must be blue with no green or red elements. Style H3 must be blue with no green or red elements as well. So I can combine H2 and H3 into one selector because it wants to have the most efficient syntax, right? So I'm going to go to new style again, H2, H3. Now this time it says blue with no green or red elements. What does this mean? So hashtag no red, no green, only blue. So 0000FF. So I'm going to put this into the color here. Gonna press OK. And when I go back there, you'll notice that the font colors actually change. Hey, I think I've left out a question. Why is that thing blank? Oh dear God, place in cell G the image of the map provided. Ooh, whoops. Okay, insert picture from file. Map. Okay, there you go. My bad. Okay, so all borders and grid lines must be red with no green or blue elements and match the requirements of question 1. So we need to scroll all the way to question 1. I have no idea who set this paper. So the external table border must have a width of 4 pixels, right? So external table border, which means the outer line of the table must be red and the thickness of the border has to be 4 pixels. So how do I do that? If I want to target the outside of the table, it is actually represented by the table element. So notice that when I select the table element, it actually selects the entire table. And that is actually the selector that you need to use to draw an outside border of 4 pixels. So under BB style here, I'm going to go to new style and I'm going to type in table here. So this will effectively select the entire table. I'm going to go to border, and because it says that it needs a 4 pixel border, right? We're going to select the border style as solid. Solid means it's a solid line. Okay, so border width 4px, 4 pixels. And the border color is red, so hashtag FF0000. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. So let's have a look and see whether it changes. Hey, look at that, an ugly red 4 pixel border. Okay, moving on. And then the internal grid lines must have a width of 2 pixels, right? So internal grid lines are actually represented by TD. TD is each individual cell of the table. So right, notice that when I select this and I click on TD, it actually selects one single cell. See that? So that is the selector that we need to use to draw internal grid lines. So I'm going to go to BB style again. I'm going to go to new style and I'm going to select, type in TD, border. I'm going to select a solid border as well, but the border width has to be 2 pixels. Border color is the same, FF0000, that gives you red. I'm going to click OK, going to switch back, and that's how it looks like right now. Okay, now if let's say you make a mistake in CSS and you want to modify it, you don't really need to come here to modify it. You can, but an easier way would be to just right click and select modify and add on or change anything that needs to be changed or added on. Okay, so I think we're done with the CSS. So let's have a look at the next question. There you go. Display the web page in your browser. If necessary, resize it so that all pages can be seen. All the page can be seen. All text can be easily read. The address bar is visible. Take a screenshot evidence of the browser window and place this in your evidence document. So let's preview this, right? I'm going to go back here and I'm going to preview it in the browser. So this is how it's going to look like. So So let me zoom it out a little bit. Okay, so this is how it's going to look like. It should be center aligned, all right, with all the necessary information displayed. Okay, so let me see whether I left out or have made any mistakes. Let me see. This is 394, right? Yep. Blah, 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 blah. I think that's about it. So I need to take a screenshot of this page showing the address. Okay, let's see. No, I'm just gonna take a screenshot like that, and I'm gonna paste it into my evidence document. So this would be evidence number 1. There you go. Gonna crop that. Don't need that. Okay, gonna resize it. Okay, there you go. Okay, moving on to the next question. Now take a copy of the HTML source and place this in your evidence document. Now evidence 2 is really important because most of your marks will actually come from the examiner marking your HTML source. So what does that mean? So you are not supposed to copy this, but you're supposed to go to code, because the code basically generates the web page. So make sure you select all the data here, copy that, and paste it into your evidence document. Okay, and then the final question, take a copy of your style sheet and place this in your evidence document as well. So I'm going to take a copy of my style sheet. I'm going to paste it into my evidence document as well. There you go. Okay. Oops, there's one more question, right? Evaluate in your own words the choice of fonts used for this web page. So type your evaluation in your own words into your evidence document using no more than 100 words. Okay, so let's evaluate the type of fonts that is used. All right. So, well, at first I wanted to just give negative feedback, but looking at the marking scheme, there are some neutral answers as well. Okay, so if you look here, you will notice that the font that is how do I say this, applied by the CSS actually matches that of the logo. So you can say that it is actually the house style. Okay, so one of the answers would be the fonts applied by CSS match the style of the company logo. Okay, and another one would be the font color, okay, actually matches that of the logo as well, right? So font color used matches that of the logo as well. Now I'm gonna put in 2 negative comments as well. Now as you can see, the font type that is used is actually very difficult to read, right? So I can say the font used is quite difficult to read, and if you look at the font color as well as the background, it doesn't really contrast well at all, right? So I can say that as well. So the color of the font does not contrast well with that of the background. Okay, so that would be my answer. Each point will get me 1 mark to a total of 4 marks. Okay, so alright, we've completed the HTML and CSS portion, which is the web authoring portion of this paper.